There is an old saying in the world of high-stakes gambling. If you look around the poker table and you can't spot the sucker, it's you. Gentlemen, welcome to the modern era. We like to pretend that romance is a fairy tale, a meritocracy where the good heart wins the fair maiden. But if you strip away the poetry and look at the mechanics, you realize that modern dating is actually a marketplace. And like any market, it has incentives, it has volatility, and it has structural imbalances. Most men are walking into this casino thinking they are playing a game of skill. They believe that if they just work harder, love deeper, and applaud louder, the result is guaranteed. But they are wrong, because the game you are actually playing is called serial monogamy. And mathematically speaking, this is a game that is rigged against you, not because women are malicious, not because men are broken, but because the rules of entry, exit, and timing favor the person who can leave the table the fastest without going bankrupt. And right now, that isn't you. So, pour yourself a drink. We are going to put aside your ego for a moment and look at the board. I am going to show you why you are losing, why your compliments are actually making you weaker, and how to stop playing a losing hand with a smile on your face. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. Let's begin with the line that will bruise your ego if you're still trying to win women over with applause. Women win the dating game, not because they are better, not because men are worse, but because the rules of this particular game, serial monogamy, reward the player who can exit quickly, re-enter easily, and keep options warm without paying a public price. And that is, in the modern dating market, disproportionately women. Now, before you mishear me, this isn't a sermon about hating anyone. It's about understanding the board you're standing on. In my line of work, you don't survive by wishing reality were different. You survive by seeing the structure, the incentives, and refusing to play a losing hand with a smile on your face. So if you're a man and you're trying to win at serial monogamy the way the culture sells it, I have bad news. You're entering a casino where the house doesn't need to cheat. The math already favors it. And once you understand that, you'll also understand why flattering women, pedestalizing them, inflating them, coating them in praise, doesn't just fail. It corrupts your position, it makes you smaller, it makes them distrust you, and it blinds both of you to the only thing that matters in the end: truth. Let's walk through it cleanly. When I say dating game, I'm not talking about love. Love is real. I'm talking about the marketplace, the environment where people evaluate, select, trade attention, and form attachments. The game most men accidentally play is serial monogamy. You date one person. You commit. It ends. You heal. You start again. Over and over. On paper, that sounds neutral. Fair. Symmetrical. In practice, it's not symmetrical, because re-entry speed isn't equal. The player who can exit a relationship and begin a new one faster gets more rolls of the dice, more attempts, more timing luck, more opportunity to land in the right place at the right moment. Dating is not purely meritocratic. It's partly timing, partly social positioning, partly environment. And in any system where luck is involved, the person who gets more attempts wins more often. That's the first principle. Frequency beats fantasy. The first reason women tend to win serial monogamy is simple. Women initiate breakups and divorces more often than men do. Many studies and analyses report women initiating a majority of divorces, often around 2/3. Now, don't get dramatic. This isn't women are evil, it's incentives and thresholds. Here's what matters psychologically. The person who ends the relationship is rarely surprised by the ending. They've been walking toward the door in their mind for weeks, sometimes months. They've had time to grieve while still inside the relationship, time to detach emotionally, time to rehearse the breakup, time to build a story that makes the exit feel inevitable and morally clean. The other person, usually the one being left, experiences something closer to an ambush. Even if he saw it coming, he rarely knows when. And timing is power. Think of it like employment. The employer who fires someone doesn't wake up that morning with a sudden inspiration. It's usually a decision made earlier, carried quietly, and executed when it's convenient for the one holding the authority. And there's another cold truth. People don't end relationships when it hurts them. They end relationships when the cost of staying becomes higher than the cost of leaving. That's not romance, that's human behavior. So if women initiate endings more frequently, they also control more of the timing, and that timing advantage is the first major edge in re-entering the market. Once someone decides a relationship is likely ending, a particular psychological phase begins. I call it the pre-exit phase. In that phase, a person starts preparing their next life before the current one is officially over. This doesn't have to mean cheating. It can look innocent on the surface. Getting in better shape, rebuilding a social life, picking up new hobbies, reconnecting with old friends, becoming more visible again. But notice what's happening. They're making themselves market ready. They're re-entering circulation. And because the relationship hasn't officially ended yet, they can do this preparation while still benefiting from the stability of the old relationship. Emotional support, routine, financial cushioning, social cover. That's not necessarily villainy. It's strategy. Often subconscious, often justified internally as finding myself. But the result is the same. When the breakup finally happens, the initiator has already done the warm-up laps. The one who gets left is still tying his shoes. The second reason women tend to move faster into new relationships is that many women maintain what I'll call peripheral options. These are not always explicit. They can be a coworker who's just a friend, a guy in a social group who's clearly interested, a friend of a friend, someone she can message and instantly receive warmth, attention, and interest. And socially, this is often tolerated because the cultural definition of infidelity is usually treated as overt sexuality, not emotional option keeping. So as long as it remains, I'm taken, but still engaging, a woman can keep doors cracked open. This is where men misunderstand the environment. Many men assume the relationship boundary is a concrete wall. In practice, for a lot of people, it's a fence with a few gates, and someone is always leaning on one of them. Now, men wish they had the same optionality. Most don't. Not at the same scale, not with the same ease, not with the same social permission. So even if a man wanted a plan B, he often doesn't have one waiting in the wings, which means after the breakup, he is forced into a rebuild phase. Rebuild confidence, rebuild routines, rebuild social access, rebuild dating momentum, and that takes time. Women, more often, can step from one room into the next. Not because women are magical, because attention flows toward women more easily in the early stages of dating. That's structural. Now we get to the part men avoid saying out loud because it bruises pride. Men's standards for entering relationships are often lower than women's. Many men will accept a relationship if she's attractive enough to him, she's willing, the friction level isn't unbearable, intimacy is on the table. Women, culturally and psychologically, are pushed toward higher selectivity, and they're also rewarded for it. So even if a man wants to quickly enter a new relationship, he hits a gate he doesn't control. Women's standards. That's not bitterness, that's reality. And here's the deeper psychological layer. Women are more likely to be judged harshly for choosing poorly, so selection pressure is stronger. Men are often judged for not choosing at all, so urgency pressure is stronger. Different social punishments create different behaviors. So the man post-breakup is trapped between two forces. He wants closeness again, but he has fewer immediate options, and he must pass someone else's filter. That's why his re-entry time tends to be longer. Now let's talk about the decade where this hits hardest, your 20s. Not because your life ends at 30, spare me the drama, but because the 20s are when most people are most active in dating and most likely to form their first serious long-term pair bond. Recent U.S. Census reporting puts the estimated median age at first marriage around 30.8 for men and 28.4 for women. Other summaries of census data show similar late 20s, early 30s medians. So yes, your 20s are a prime period. The timing matters. Now here's the visual aid logic, stated clearly. Assume two things. One, it takes roughly 6 months to properly evaluate whether a relationship has long-term potential. That's the bare minimum to see patterns, conflict style, consistency, lifestyle alignment, values under pressure. 2. After a breakup, it takes the average woman about 1 month to enter a new relationship, the average man about 6 months to enter a new relationship. Are these numbers perfect? No, they're illustrative, a model. But the point is directionally true. Women re-enter faster, men re-enter slower. Now run the decade. Over 10 years, the woman cycles through more relationship attempts, more red lines on the graph, than the man does. And if she gets, say, 17 serious attempts while he gets 10, that's not a small advantage. That's about 70% more chances to land the timing luck combination that produces a stable partnership. Dating includes luck the way a claw machine includes luck. You can be skilled, you can aim well, but you still need enough attempts for probability to work in your favor. This is why men lose serial monogamy. Not because men are inferior, but because the tempo is against them. So if you are a man who is playing serial monogamy as your main strategy for securing long-term commitment, you are voluntarily entering a rhythm that punishes you. And that, right there, is the core message. Stop flattering women for winning a game that structurally favors them. Now we pivot to the second half, the part most men need even more, because nothing is more painful to watch than a man who tries to buy desire with praise. It's not just embarrassing, it's dangerous. Flattery fails for two reasons. One, it signals low status and high need. A man who overpraises a woman is quietly confessing, "I don't believe I have value unless I convince you." That is not attractive. That is not leadership. That is not composure. In the psychology of attraction, neediness reads as risk. It suggests instability. It suggests a man who will bend, beg, resent, or explode when he doesn't get his way. Even if you never do those things, the signal is there. 2. It distorts reality, and people fear distorted reality. Here's the philosophical point. Human beings survive by tracking reality accurately. You don't need to be a soldier to understand this. Every life decision depends on calibration, who to trust, what to invest in, where danger is hiding, what is true. Flattery is a kind of fog machine. A true friend tells you the truth, not to hurt you, but to protect you from your blind spots. Flattery does the opposite. It inflates, it exaggerates, it praises without precision, it manufactures a fantasy. And anyone with self-awareness can feel it. At first, sure, praise can feel nice. It soothes insecurity. But repeated flattery becomes suspicious because it tries to replace observation with persuasion. And the higher quality the person, the more allergic they are to persuasion that smells like strategy. Let's say it cleanly. People who are insecure, craving validation, and not grounded in reality tend to drink flattery like water. People who are self-aware, grounded, socially intelligent, emotionally calibrated, treat excessive flattery like a con, not because they're rude, because they understand what it costs. A self-aware person knows their strengths and weaknesses. They know where they rank in a given environment. They know there is always someone better looking, smarter, more charismatic, more accomplished, and that pretending otherwise is childish. So when you praise them in a way that doesn't match reality, they don't feel loved. They feel managed. They feel sold to. And they lose respect for you. This is why flattery fails with the very women men claim they want, the ones who are composed, sharp, and realistic. They don't want a man who worships them. They want a man who sees them. There's a difference. Now we widen the lens. Modern culture flatters constantly. It hands out applause like candy. And while encouragement can be healthy, empty affirmation has a side effect. It disconnects people from reality. When someone is told they are exceptional, no matter what they do, they lose the feedback that makes growth possible. They stop correcting. They stop improving. They start demanding. Philosophically, you can call this the tragedy of unearned certainty. If you never earn your confidence becomes fragile. If your self-image is built on applause, you become dependent on applause. And when reality refuses to clap, you panic. That's where entitlement is born, the belief that the world owes you outcomes you haven't built the capacity to sustain. So yes, flattery is dangerous, not because compliments are evil, but because false praise creates false maps, and false maps get people hurt. That includes dating. A person who believes they deserve a partner far beyond what their habits, character, and maturity can sustain will create chaos for themselves and everyone around them. And a man who participates in that delusion by flattering them isn't being kind. He's being weak. Now, listen carefully, because this is where most men get stupid. When you hear, "don't flatter women," some men translate it into, "be brutally honest." Neg them, insult them, tear them down. That's not strength. That's immaturity wearing a tuxedo. Cold truth, brutal honesty is often just aggression looking for permission. So here's the protocol. Respectful, grounded, effective. 1. Don't pedestalize. Don't perform. Speak like you belong in the room. If you walk up like she's royalty and you're a servant, you've already lost. 2. Use specific, reality-based appreciation. Sparingly, a sincere compliment is precise. It's not worship. You're easy to talk to. I like how direct you are. That's a sharp perspective. Those are not fantasies. They are observations. 3. Maintain your frame. In diplomacy, the person who keeps composure controls the exchange. Flattery is often a bid for approval. Frame is a sign you already approve of yourself. 4. Tell the truth when asked. Don't weaponize it unprompted. If she asks what you think, don't lie. But don't walk around handing out truth like it's a knife. That's not wisdom. That's cruelty dressed as philosophy. 5. Respect boundaries and consent, always. This isn't a game of conquest. It's human connection. Be direct, be respectful, and accept no like a man who has options and self-respect. And now, the deeper point. When you stop flattering, you force reality back into the room. You become the rare man who doesn't try to purchase attention with worship. And that alone distinguishes you. Now we stitch the whole thing together. Women tend to win serial monogamy because, 1, they more often control the timing of endings. 2, they often have peripheral options already present. 3, men's lower relationship entry standards collide with women's gatekeeping. 4, and the tempo advantage gives women more attempts during a critical decade. So if you're a man and you want a stable long-term relationship, you need to stop pretending. The default cultural strategy is designed for you. This is not about hating women. It's about refusing to be naive. And once you refuse naivety, flattery becomes what it always was, a nervous habit, a bribe, a signal that you don't believe you're enough. A wise man doesn't do that, not because he's cruel, because he's calibrated. Let me leave you with something simple. Flattery is what men do when they are afraid. Afraid of silence, afraid of rejection, afraid that if they don't perform, they won't be chosen. But the man who wins, not the game, but his life, is the man who can stand in the room without selling himself. Women don't need more worship. They already live in a culture that praises, flatters, and validates endlessly. What they rarely get is a man who is steady, honest, observant, respectful, unshaken. So don't flatter them, not because you hate them, because you respect reality. and you respect yourself. And in the end, that's the only power worth having. So we return to where we started, the casino. We have analyzed the timeline. We have acknowledged the structural advantage women possess in the cycle of serial monogamy, the faster re-entry, the peripheral options, the pre-exit strategy. When you see the math laid out like this, the temptation is to become bitter, to resent the players, to curse the house. But bitterness is just another form of dependence. It is the reaction of a man who feels helpless. A gentleman, a man of power, does not waste energy hating the rain for being wet. He simply buys an umbrella. The tragedy of the modern man is not that he has a disadvantage in dating. The tragedy is how he tries to solve it. He tries to solve it with flattery. He tries to solve it by inflating the woman, by placing her on a pedestal so high that she can no longer see him as a peer, only as a fan. And this brings us to the Robert Greene principle of power. Neediness is a repellent. When you flatter a woman excessively, when you shield her from reality, you are holding up a sign that says, "I cannot afford to lose you." And in any negotiation, business, war, or love, the person who cannot afford to walk away has already lost. You must understand that the most seductive quality a man can possess is not his wallet nor his jawline. It is his tether to reality. It is his ability to look at a beautiful woman and see a human being, flawed, capable, and temporary, rather than a goddess who must be appeased. Women are tired of the applause. They are drowning in a digital sea of likes, heart emojis, and empty compliments. It is noise. It is cheap. Do you know what is rare? Silence. Composure. A man who speaks the truth, kindly but firmly. A man who does not smile to buy approval, but smiles because he is actually amused. If you take one thing from this analysis, let it be this. Stop trying to bribe women with praise. It devalues the currency of your attention. Instead, build a life that is so solid, so interesting, and so grounded in reality that you welcome a partner to join you, but you do not collapse if they decline. The game of serial monogamy is volatile. The timing is often against you. But the man who respects himself, who understands the board, and who refuses to perform like a circus animal for a treat, that is the man who eventually wins. Not because he played the game, but because he realized he didn't need the casino to be rich. Keep your eyes open, keep your frame, and never, ever trade your dignity for attention. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you on the next one.